Sparks.
You want to get sued?
So yeah, Al Sparks is back, y'all.
I love him!
I'm Art,
I'm Bobby.
the host of Where Are They Now? Now let's get back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Hey, listen.
Hey, listen. Welcome back to the show. So we were talking about before the break. We got a couple calls. We'll take those starting in a second.
Yeah.
I have to say, the Republicans think they are going to run on the 2020 election. This is what they're going to run on in the midterms. 2020 election was fake and a fraud and a travesty, and it was stolen. So please, and they're rigged. So please go vote. I don't know how that's going to work, but good luck. But they're also going to run on Afghanistan and masks and vaccine mandates, all of which are not going to be news by July. I mean, Afghanistan, we're out. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but after 20 years, we're not in Afghanistan anymore. No thanks to Donald Trump's magic plan.
Right.
But there are a lot of, on all of these things, the infrastructure bill, for example, that could have gotten passed during Trump. It passed with a bipartisan majority. There were enough, and as a matter of fact, the numbers might have even been greater if Trump in the voting, because more Republicans would have signed on to get it passed because Trump was presenting it, or it was happening under him, so they could pat themselves on the back for accomplishing it. And all the Democrats would have voted for it because they know we need it, and they actually give a crap about governance. But he couldn't put it forward because it would have passed by bipartisan measures, and he couldn't have claimed that it was something that was all him. And again, it goes back to that whole thing. Like anybody can win. Anybody can win in court if they're innocent. Anybody can win in court if, it's the cheaters that are really the special people. So the same thing goes about this legislation that's working its way through Congress, which, by the way, will pass also under a bipartisan coalition. It's being written in a bipartisan way, and everybody's on board, and the White House pushed for it, which is we need more economic scrutiny of American businesses that are doing business in China and where that money is going, whether or not that undermines the validity of them in the Dow, for example, on the stock market. If they become less financially real, financially genuine as entities because of all the puffery and nonsense in the Chinese financial system, which is, it is all smoke. Just trust us. There's a reason why Trump and Xi Jinping get along so well, because all they do is hide numbers and present things as face. They have a lot in common.
Yep.
So, taking together the actions, this is from the Political article about this thing. This is kind of amazing. Taken together, the actions would represent an unprecedented expansion of government oversight, sure to chill some American investment in the Chinese economy and escalate commercial tensions with Beijing. But supporters say, which is, by the way, just about everyone, say that they are necessary to stop American banks from funding China's technological development and prevent U.S. And by the way, when they say China's technological development, in all honesty, simply the Chinese military's theft of intellectual property. We're just paying for it at this point. And prevent U.S. supply chains from being reliant on Beijing for goods used in critical industries like medicine, energy, and defense. And also, by the way, to keep them from getting an outsized amount of funds and choke other countries out of existence. Hence the need for TPP originally, and why everybody, simply because trade deal bad, everybody wanted to avoid TPP. Everybody had this, because of NAFTA, trade deals are bad, and therefore TPP was basically dead on arrival. And by the way, the conversations about NAFTA were pumped up during the time that the TPP was being discussed by Chinese propaganda, because they don't want it. So they just like Russia around the support of the Trump campaign were pushing back against these things with phony Facebook groups and anti-NAFTA trade pages and nonstop botting on social media. So yeah. So we're in an economic war, whether we want to use that language or not, said Senator Bob Casey, Democrat of Pennsylvania, who is leading a bill with Senator John Cornyn of Texas that would expand oversight of U.S. supply chains in China. I think it requires that we examine some issues that maybe 10 or 15 years ago we didn't have to worry about. That bill, currently under consideration as part of Congress's anti-China economic legislation, has already been delayed multiple times by corporate objections to the expansion of government oversight, you think? But some House Democrats are now behind the plan, potentially giving it new momentum. Those legislative efforts and the White House discussions about executive orders have many policymakers and corporate leaders convinced that expanded oversight is inevitable sooner or later. And that's because there are no businesses in China that aren't 50% the government. That's it.
Yeah.